Pat Dooris. Welcome to The Story and welcome to Friday. Tonight we're going to talk about graffiti. Now, I know some folks think it's art, and I guess I agree, some of it does look kind of cool, but come on, most of it does not. And in my opinion, it sends a message of lawlessness to folks driving into our city. So graffiti, that's our big story tonight. A lot of you tell us that graffiti bugs you too, and you wonder why the government, the Department of Transportation, for example, doesn't cover it up or wipe it off quickly. I gotta say, I've wondered that too. So, during my recent interview with Kris Strickler, who's the director of the Oregon Department of Transportation, I asked him about it. And then while I'm thinking about graffiti, I think the legislature gave you $20 million to try and clean up. And we hear from our viewers all the time, you know, hey, I went to pick up a relative or a business associate at the airport and driving in and it looks like crazy town. Yeah. So are you going to be able to clean that up? And then how do you keep it from coming back?
Those are two actually really great questions. Are we going to be able to clean that up? I really applaud the leadership of the governor, of the legislature to really bring forward a significant sum of money for us to invest into the system in that way. I do think the image and the quality of the system matters as people drive through, and so we hear that time and time again. It's also worth noting, you know, our people live here too, and none of our folks want to see that kind of deterioration on the system. That said, how do you keep it from coming back? Well, that's a bigger question, I'll be honest. Obviously, frequency, our ability to get out there and continue to clean it up based upon the funding available, that's going to help a lot. But there are likely other factors too that I think are contributing to the amount of graffiti that we have.
Now, not exactly a reassuring answer, is it? Basically, he's saying, yeah, we see it too, and it's great the legislature gave us extra money to clean it up, but we have no idea how to keep it from coming back. And maybe it's fair. After all, they're not in the business of trying to stop the people spray painting the walls of the freeway. You think the police should be cracking down harder?
I don't know that I would answer it that way, because I think the police are under a significant amount of pressure for all kinds of things these days. I think we're in a different place than the state was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I would say that I think the rate of graffiti coming onto the system is much higher than it has been in the past.
Yeah, and some people were saying, you know, northbound on 405 around Portland State, there's signs that are covered, and you can't even tell if you were a visitor where to go.
Right.
Why don't those get cleaned or replaced?
They do, and the pace at being able to replace them is actually a key factor. And while I would never want to bore you with all the intricate details, in this case the details matter. So when you look at an overhead sign, for example, that's on a lane of traffic that's doing 60 miles an hour, we have to take that lane, we have to put traffic control out, we have to have people in a bucket truck that are rising up there in order to replace that sign, not to mention the fact that they have to get the sign remade in most cases because the sign's been completely ruined. All of those factors take a significant amount of prep and time and funding for that matter. And you know, the public expects us to have the roadway open and the signs clean, and we're working diligently towards that. So none of this should be an excuse, it's just not as easy as we see it today. We run out and fix it tomorrow.
All right, now before we move on with this, a lot of you do want to know, what are the cops doing to try and stop graffiti? As far as I can tell, seems a little bit hit and miss, but Portland police say, no, that's not correct. They do have a team working on graffiti and that it's just a bunch of long and complex investigations. And by the way, they are making arrests. The district attorney's office says this Geo Metro display is the calling card of a 22-year-old named Aiden Saul. A grand jury indicted him last week on 4 counts of criminal mischief and 19 counts of criminal mischief second degree. He pled not guilty. And earlier this year, Portland police arrested 27-year-old Jerry Mijangos. Police say he's from California and responsible for hundreds of what they call criminal tags around the city of Portland. Here he is with a spray-painted sweatshirt. I'm sure he's pleading not guilty. Police say he's prolific, from the tagging the sides of buildings to the sides of overpasses to the pillars under the freeways. He's spread his paint far and wide, allegedly. A police release shows he was arrested multiple times from November of 2021 until January 30th of 2024, and was let out multiple times as well until finally being held for violating probation earlier this year. Good, huh? Well, I checked this afternoon, and actually he was only held for 6 weeks and then released. And records show that first guy, Aiden Saul, He was never held in jail. Both are out. A spokesman said the graffiti team also brought cases against 2 other prolific taggers in the last year. So in my opinion, it's good that police are taking some action. Maybe as they do more, word will get out that Portland is no longer an open canvas. Finally, I do want to clarify one of the things we talked about with that interview with the ODOT director. I said the legislature gave $20 million to ODOT to clean up graffiti. It's actually not all for graffiti. Turns out the money covers a variety of things. $4 million will be used for graffiti removal. It'll happen every 2 weeks in areas where they don't need to stop traffic to do the work, and once a month where they do, according to ODOT. $4 million will go to clean up homeless camps. $4 million will go to litter removal, and it will happen 2 to 4 times a month. And then the remaining $8 million will be spent building things to deter camping and keep RVs away from the bridges and bike paths and retaining walls. So that's how your money is attacking graffiti and all kinds of other things. All right, well, that's Oregon. Washington State has a problem with graffiti along the interstates as well, and they plan to attack it in a unique way, using drones. Numbers from WashDOT show that the cost of cleaning up graffiti has increased significantly in 2020, and then it shot up again last year. So a state rep named Andrew Barkus had an idea.
Drone technology is expanding, and there are actually drones that you can load with paint and paint over this.
I mean, I'd never thought of that, but I guess. Barkus introduced HB 1989, which creates a $1 million pilot program that utilizes drones to paint over graffiti. The program also explores different paints and coverings that, maybe could be used on infrastructure that would prevent spray painting from sticking. Traffic cameras could also be used to spot graffiti artists while they're tagging the wall.
Today, you would have to send out a crew with a high lift truck and 8 people, and it just takes too long and it's too expensive. One person with a drone can paint over an area, and if you have a fleet of those, then you're staying on top of it, you're cleaning it up, and you're not allowing it to stay present for a long period of time.
Governor Jay Inslee signed off on the project this month. Now Barkus hopes this can be the first step in cleaning up the state's highways. We don't know exactly what that is going to look like, but we do actually have a pretty good idea. This video is from a Florida company called Apelix. The company's CEO told us his drones clean high-rise buildings and deliver precision coatings. They also have a contract with the U.S. Army to develop drones for decontaminating equipment in war. They've heard about the Washington program and hope to take part in the pilot. You can see they work pretty well. So if you're up there, don't be surprised if you see a drone working the side of the freeway, painting over graffiti. Well, what do you think about drones being used for graffiti cleanup? Something that Oregon should be looking into? Feels like we should try just about anything at this point. Let us know, will you? Email us. thestory@kgw.com is our email address. Or you could call and leave a good old-fashioned voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story from last night. It was investigative reporter Evan Watson at the helm. He took a closer look at a state program that gives landowners elk hunting tags if the animals have been damaging their property. It's aptly called the Damage Tag Program. Now in the last 3 years, more than 600 of these tags were issued in Clatsop County alone, and one landowner got 80 in that time frame. Now if you missed the story last night, you can find it on the KGW YouTube page, and boy, oh boy, did you fill our email and voicemail inboxes last night. You feel very strongly, and there's a healthy balance between people who think the program should continue as it is and folks who agree with a viewer named Annette.
We used to watch those elk all the time. They would eat the fruit in the yard, in our trees. I can't tell you how much I miss them and how horrible it is that one wealthy landowner can get 80 plus tags to distribute as he wishes. This is appalling. It needs to stop.
And Heidi wrote in to say, I think it's outrageous that folks would kill these majestic animals who've been living on this earth cooperatively with humans for eons. I'm saddened by the landowners who would choose to kill and not focus on prevention. And the real issue may be they are coming in for food due to the changing climate. There must be another solution.
We really enjoyed having the elk walk by on our property and past our property. They are absolutely fabulous. You can't see anything like this in other places, and the program should be definitely stopped. It's a horrible thing what they did, and It should come to an end. Please do it.
And Kim wrote in to say, these homeowners looks like they're living in probably multi-million-dollar property. If the elk are such a problem for them, build a fence around your property to keep them out. As said, they were here long before these people came. Oy vey.
I think this is nothing more than a culling of a herd. As a hunter, those permits can't be dished out that freely. You know, I know in the Midwest, farmers get permits, but they're allotted so many. This seems like an open hunt to get rid of the entire herd.
All right, thanks for all your comments. But there is another side of this as well, and we did hear from those folks, a few who have actually used the program in the past. A viewer named Steve, who's retired as a dairy farmer in Tillamook County, he says the damage tag program is, quote, wonderful because it worked for him.
This year was the first year in 10 that the herd has not entered our farm or the neighbor's farm. They go around us now. But anyway, it was a wonderful process. It was awful seeing the feed. Just remember this, every load of hay you see going down the road is a $12,000 bill.
And Clint wrote to us to say they are being harvested to provide food for the hunter or donated to those in need and hopefully altering herd behavior to reduce property damage. Personally, I have utilized over-the-counter damage control hunt tags to provide most of the meat my family eats for the last 2 years. I will support this program long before I will choose to eat feedlot-raised beef or, heaven forbid, corporate-raised poultry. And Wayne says his family saw the damage that elk can do firsthand as he grew up on a farm north of Hillsboro. My father stopped raising beef due to fence damage from large herds coming through his property, and he also stopped raising grain crops due to the extensive crop damage that occurred. I think the damage tag program is a great way to manage excessive numbers of game animals that are causing property and economic loss to landowners. And then there's this from Joe. Leave wildlife management to ODFW. When the general public tries to manage wildlife through ballot measures like prohibiting hunting bears and cougars with dogs, all kinds of problems occur. Let the educated wildlife biologists do their job. Thanks for all your feedback. We really do appreciate it. We really do read every email, and we listen to all your voicemails. Along with all of the elk feedback, a few of you also remarked on our little programming change from last night.
Don't know what prompted you to not have any commercials tonight, but I just wanted to tell you I was absolutely delighted with that decision. If you could do it more often, I would back you 1,000%.
Thank you. I heard that from a lot of people, actually. And Gail wrote in to say, really liked not having to listen to commercials during the story, but we're wondering why and how long is that going to continue? Well, as far as why it happened, that's kind of above my technological understanding, but let's just boil it down to say that when technology works, it's great. And when it doesn't, it is not great. We had to adjust on the fly last night when we found we couldn't play any of our commercials. Fortunately, it only lasted for about an hour here at KGW, and now we're back to running commercials. Coming up next on The Story. It's been 1 month since the Portland Fire and Rescue launched a 2-person team that focuses solely on responding to overdose calls. It was meant to keep full fire crews from having to respond to every OD call. 30 days in, how's it going? Blair Best has the update when The Story returns. About a month ago, we told you about a new team within Portland Fire and Rescue, basically an overdose response team. It consists of one paramedic and one EMT who respond to OD calls instead of having to send out the whole crew with the truck and all the firefighters. And they have been busy. Blair Best brings us an update.
There is a quiet threat on the streets of Portland.
This is something serious and they take it light and they do it and they die.
He's talking about fentanyl, of course.
You never underestimate that drug right there because it's unpredictable. That fentanyl will kill you. It's so heartless.
Every time I ever save someone's life from it, I'm like, do you really want that to be your last breath, man?
A Portland Fire and Rescue saved Jacob's life not too long ago after he smoked powdered fentanyl for the first time.
Tell me, it's really strong and careful. I'm like, I'll be fine. And then smoked two big hits of it and woke up with paramedics around me.
And you still smoke the powder?
Yeah. Not as much, though. I'm very careful with it when I do it.
The reality that we are within is tragic.
In the past 30 days, Portland Fire and Rescue's new overdose response team, an EMT and paramedic, responded to 90 overdoses downtown.
My God, 90?
It's not clear how many of those were deadly, but Multnomah County data shows 68 people have died from a suspected or confirmed fentanyl overdose so far this year.
That's just 'cause people are ignorant and aren't being careful.
Of the 90 overdoses Portland Fire has recently responded to, nearly half were treated on the street instead of the ER, freeing up resources.
Once they address somebody in the street, they establish that relationship and they follow up 24 hours later.
Yeah, they're very helpful.
We are doing everything we can to meet the people in the street where they are and provide them a pathway out.
Portland Fire and Rescue's overdose response team meets daily with the task force behind the fentanyl state of emergency, and we've been told that we'll be getting updates every 30 days from that task force. The next update should be coming very soon, but today they told us they haven't set a date yet. Now, as for that overdose response team, it's just a pilot program that ends sometime this fall, but they are hoping to be able to extend that. Blair Best, KGW News.
Thanks, Blair. Up next on the story, a Washington woman made quite the discovery when going through her late mom's belongings. It has to do with former President Barack Obama. We'll explain when the story returns. Well, this is the last week of the KGW Great Food Drive, and we're finishing super strong. Thanks in part to Rivermark Credit Union, they've made an additional contribution of more than 760,000 meals. That means we've collected over 2 million meals for local families. And it's still not too late for you to help out. You can give online at kgw.com/food drive. We also want to thank Pacific Office Automation, Safeway, and local Toyota dealers for helping us make this year's drive a huge success. A Washington woman recently found out she is just 2 degrees of separation between herself and former President Barack Obama. The connection comes through her late mom and the former president's mom, and it runs through a Washington high school. Eric Wilkinson with our Seattle sisters explains.
Megan Dasher Watkins was going through her late mother's belongings last year when she came upon some photos that caught her eye.
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
They're pictures of Stanley Ann Dunham, better known as the mother of former President Barack Obama.
I was so kind of like in shock and kind of fangirling over the whole thing.
Dunham attended Mercer Island High School with Megan's mom. They graduated in 1960. Megan remembers her mother talking about Dunham during the Obama administration. She said they'd go on sleepovers and campouts together as teenagers. When Megan found the pictures, she had just one thing in mind.
I wanted to make sure that President Obama and his family had these as well.
Last February, Megan talked with King 5 about her discovery. Somehow, word must have gotten back to the Obama people because this month she got this email from the Obama Presidential Center.
At first, wanting to make sure it wasn't one of my friends or family, cracking a joke on me.
The center's registrar was asking if she would mail him the photos to display at the Obama Center in Chicago.
How often do you have somebody contact you from a presidential library and want to have part of your family's history included in it?
For Megan, it's a privilege to have her family artifacts on display at the center, but it's knowing that her mother's memory will live on as part of presidential history that means the most.
She would be so honored and thrilled to be able to donate this to the library of such a significant, important person in history. It makes me so happy that my mom's name is going to be a part of this.
Yeah, that's a cool story. And before we go tonight, here's another one. We wanted to take a moment to congratulate a loyal KGW viewer, a viewer of the story, whose story helps illustrate a positive, lasting effect that we can have on the people around us. A viewer named Veronica, who emails us often from the Grand Ronde area, sent us this photo of her 40-year sobriety coin. Congratulations. She tells us speed was her drug of choice back in the early 80s, and the last time she used was March of 1984. And she credits this man with helping her get clean. His name is Mr. Donald Fries. He was Veronica's history and government teacher at Shaw Junior High School in Spokane. Veronica says Mr. Fries was kind but stern in his efforts to get her sober. Mr. Fries died this past Monday, and Veronica says it's because of him that she's sober now. Thanks, Veronica, for sharing that story with us. Kindness and compassion for the people around us, it's often more powerful than we think. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, it never ends. It goes on, and we love it. The new show on the Portland Timbers that premiered last week on KGW, that's coming your way next right now. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter will air on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. I've got a great story on artificial intelligence coming your way Monday night. Don't miss it. I'll see you then at 6:30.